Hello, my name is Irma Navarro, and my presentation focuses on the epistemologies of sociology and religion. My research question is: do undergraduate students from religious backgrounds experience higher stress levels when attending secular colleges compared to those from non religious homes? My main goals that I hope to observe in my research, I aim to observe the susceptibility to stress that young adults, which come from religious households, face when they move away from home, especially in pursuit of a higher education. These young adults may face susceptibility to struggles concerning their identity, religiosity, and also their family concerns. These struggles can result in an accumulation of secondary stressors. For example, this religious separation wouldn't exactly be a primary stressor that exactly results in major levels of stress, but the secondary stressors that result from religious separation can begin to accumulate large amounts of stress that are detrimental to the overall functioning and well being of the student. These are going to be financial struggles, social struggles, and educational struggles. These financial struggles are going to be financial dependence on family and parents. Many students are dependent partially or heavily on family for financial support. I can speak from personal experience. I have been predominantly dependent on my family for financial support, and there was moments of time where I was experiencing conflict within my religious life and my family life, and this distance made me grow resistant or hesitant to ask my family for help, which would lead in my own personal struggle or conflict as I was a student away from home, living on my own, and I was trying to navigate this new experience that was college, and this integrates into the social struggle where many families, for many students, provide emotional support and offer some form of social network. These are going to be students who are from uh, closely or tightly knit religious families. These families focus their connection and formation of networks through religion. And these formations of networks and relationships are going to be through religious communities and events, attending church and religious events and practices, which we begin to form many relationships and friendships which are rooted in religion. And so when we face a separation between our religiosity, which the location in which our religiosity was initially formed, we may experience a decrease in a willingness to participate in our religion. This conflict and these struggles begin to weigh on our mental health and our motivation, which is detrimental to our education. It is very important to have motivation when attending college, especially as a first year student who is experiencing new ideas and concepts. It's very important to have a very strong sense of self, a very strong familial network and social network that one can lean upon for moral support. And it's very important to have these conversations with the people that we consider as key members who have very important roles within our lives. For example, our families. We form a lot of our morals and our values and our beliefs around our families. Students who go away from home in pursuit of higher education may face conflicts concerning the values and beliefs and ideas that were introduced to them when they were at home, in comparison to the views and ideas that they're introduced to when they are pursuing higher education. As a result, the weight of these stressors on the students may begin to negatively impact their academic performance. My focus is specifically when in pursuit of a higher education. This is a susceptibility to stress within struggles with identity, religiosity, and family can result in secondary stressors within the individual's personal life, which may be unique to spirituality and religiosity. And this refers back to the conflict that I was referring to in the last slide. The conflict of ideas that students are being exposed to. For example, in my experience, I was aware of Darwinism and the theory of evolution. However, I wasn't really well versed in the intricacies or details or how this idea was formed or who Charles Darwin was. And once I was in college, I was able to take an anthropology class that really nailed this idea of evolution into my head. And this was something that was honestly new to me. I, up until this point, had concretely and thoroughly believed in Jesus as the sole creator. Um, and this idea was very unique and different to me. So I naturally was discussing it with one of my social networks, my family. However, my mother is extremely religious, and as I brought up this idea of evolution, which was new to me, and I wanted to discuss within my organization and my network and my family, she immediately let me know that it was incorrect, and not only was it incorrect, it was disrespectful to consider as a genuine um, it was disrespectful to consider as a genuine idea of how we as human beings and life have been created. From that point onward, it honestly fostered some kind of conflict or tension between me and my mother, which was created due to her persistence and devotion to her religion, and as a result, as my pursuit of going to higher education. Other unique stressors that religious students may face may be limited access to opportunities for religious practice, the moral conflict that we just mentioned, and distance and homesickness, fostering feelings of solitude and isolation. Many students also face the fear of judgment, and this fear of judgment doesn't just come from fear of judgment from peers or fear of judgment from family. It also comes from a fear of judgment from their deity or the spiritual being which they devote their worship to. For example, it may stem from a fear or conflict or tension with the familial tie or familial relationships. And our familial relationships for religious students are often grounded in religious participation. And it may begin to feel as if a departure from familial connection or a departure from religious connection can feel like a departure in either any of these categories. For example, um, when I moved away from college, I began to pull away from my family, and I didn't realize, but this also began to lead to me liberalizing my views a lot more, which limited my motivation to engage in religious practice and to talk to God. I believe I started talking to God a lot less, and I started thinking about alternative ideas and concepts that really didn't uphold God as the center or creator of the universe as I was raised to believe. As for my literature analysis within this presentation consists of a summary of multiple literatures. And the main observations I drew from my literature analysis were that students who move from home face a liberalization of views and exposure to new ideas. Although many of the studies revealed that religious students were no more susceptible than the non religious students were to liberalization of views, um, I did see that while they weren't more susceptible, it was occurring more. There were more religious students facing liberalization of views than there were of students who were non-religious. The lack of susceptibility implies more so it implies more so that there was going to be more religious students who were possibly exposed to ideas which they didn't consider before, but they were no more likely to genuinely believe or switch over to more liberalized versions of these views than the non religious students. The literature analysis also revealed that between students, the biggest influencer was indeed the new networks and peer groups that were formed within college. And this concept worked both ways. So, religious students who went into higher college and went into peer groups who were centered more around religion and also came from religious homes, they were going to still be surrounded by religious conversation and religious dialogue, which fostered a deeper relationship and encouraged the student to be more involved within the religion in order to be more involved and integrated within their friend group. This also happened vice versa for students who were non religious. And if they were surrounded by individuals which were heavily religious or participated in a lot of religious events or practices, non religious students may be more likely to consider religious ideas or other religious concepts. And as I mentioned previously, we can also see this in religious students who move away from home and in pursuit of higher education. They may surround themselves with peers which are not very involved in religious practice, which pulls them away from their religion and decreases their religious motivation to participate in rituals and ceremonies and events and attending mass. As for my hypothesis, um, I believe that undergraduate students from religious backgrounds and families will report higher stress levels when attending colleges at least 100 miles from home compared to non religious students due to unique conflicts between familial values and campus culture. As for the sociological significance of my study, this research aims to view the intersection of religiosity and homesickness and the unique stressors which result from it. And I want to view these stressors in order to try and incorporate resources for religious students of many diverse religions, which are support resources. For example, there are many resources for support for students right now for suicide hotlines, abuse hotlines, mental health hotlines, lines where you can get aid for food or for transportation or information concerning food stamps. Resources like these, it's very important to have a very diverse um, sources amount of sources for many groups and communities to not only encourage all students to take advantage of these resources, but to allow them to be able to take advantage of these resources. It's very easy to say, here are the resources, but it's very hard and very unlikely, or not unlikely, but very difficult for many students because many schools tend to focus on a very one sided perspective or Eurocentric view, which, it would promote one view and does not consider the concerns and struggles of other students of diverse religions outside of monotheistic religions or outside of the big three or Western religions. This will also make the college experience easier for many communities and encourage students from many communities to pursue higher education, and to let them know that they're going to be safe here and cared for, and that their concerns are not something that should be thrown onto the back burner, and they are something that needs to be carefully researched and analyzed in order for institutions to carefully integrate policies and ideas that will actually help these students. As for my research method, I have decided to use a qualitative method as I aim to view the experiences of students. And because I want to view their experiences, I'm going to have to get to know them as an individual to understand why these experiences have formed their decisions and their reactions to these certain experiences. The advantages of the qualitative method would leave social processes uninterrupted. These social processes are very important to the socialization of students and how they react to these very unique stressors that are induced by religiosity and religious conflict. Because I personally consider the topic of religiosity and familial struggle stemming from conflict within your own religion, I wanted to use a qualitative method to try and encourage and establish some level of trust. But how but because I am using the qualitative method, it is important to acknowledge the disadvantages. And this includes the risk of an increase in response bias due to the subjectivity of the qualitative methods, such as the questions that are going to be asked. Um, I personally, right now, believe I will be asking questions from like a list of ideas. I will definitely be forming more well constructed questions, which will guide my participant to give me the answers and I want them to answer, instead of an alternative narrative that they may be trying to satisfy. And because these interviews are going to be individually conducted and focusing around the experience of the individual, this decreases my generalizability greatly. I would also focus my research on the experiences of Muslim and Catholic students for the sake of time, as each individual religion will result in different stressors and experiences. The control variables that I have decided to use include education, which I will control for through ensuring that each participant has at least a high school diploma, as well as enrollment in a university, which will ensure that my participants are at least first years within a university. I also would like to control for religious participation and familial relationship status. These variables are more potential considerations, as I want to ensure that some of my participants, come from close knit families, as well as participants which may not identify themselves as religious but come from religious families. Um, and I would also like to potentially view a familial relationship status. Are participants still actively speaking to their families? Is this a positive relationship? Is it a negative one? How does this affect their religiosity and their own perception of themselves? And this was the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.